Well, hello and welcome to This Week at LogTrade. And as usual, Fredrik, what episode is it?
It's episode number 8. Two more to go before Christmas.
And today we actually have with us a special guest, Atika. And Atika is an entrepreneur working with connection between India and Sweden mostly. And she has this broad, amazing network and done amazing things. And we thought it would be really interesting to have you here. So welcome, Atika.
Thank you so much, Sara. And thank you, Fredrik, for considering me worthy of your podcast.
It is a pleasure of ours. And I think you can just start, Atika, with introducing yourself. And because I remember the first time we had a meeting and I was like, oh, this is a superwoman, amazing things you have done. But please just give us a brief introduction.
So I have a very long association with Sweden. And I think that's one of my best introductions when I'm in this conversation. I'm educated in textile. I'm an MBA in international business. That's my educational background. I've been studying in different parts of the world. I started my first job with Benetton to start up their retail business in India. And it's a funny story, but because of that story, I became country manager without any employees as my first job. And so one of my advantages is that I've worked with multiple European companies, but one of my disadvantages is that I've always worked in top positions. I've never really been a worker, so to say. So I set up stores for Benetton, and in about 4 years, Benetton decided to get an Indian partner, and I decided that I needed to study again. So I went back to do my MBA, and then by chance I met a Swedish lady who was sent to India to set up sourcing for Kappahl, and we clicked over a meal, and suddenly I had a contract, and I worked with Kappahl for a few years, setting up their operations for this subcontinent. And it was also the years of multi-fiber agreement. So Africa was very important. And then Coop came into our lab, or it came as COEF, because they were owning Kappahl those years, and they needed a setup. And then so I got entangled with that, and then they became Coop. So I was helping to source for multiple markets, everything from high-end retail to hypermarkets, supermarkets, mostly non-food. I also, at this point, maybe should say I come from a background of food. My family owns a famous chain of restaurants in Delhi called the Chonas, which is my last name. And also that my father was the pioneer of organic food in India. So food has been an inherent part of our business, but I always worked with non-food myself. And then I stopped because I had to stop, because I felt that I had done too many years at one company, or, within a company, multiple companies, and decided that I'd probably take a year off because I've never really had that pretty much all my life. And then IKEA found me, and I started with them on a small project, and very quickly I started to work on a global level with textiles, which is what's my background. I think it's one of the best learning grounds, IKEA, and I think today my best reference points come from IKEA. So it was a great job, global, like nothing else, and also multiple facets of business involved, everything from finance down to real sourcing and retail. So I did that for about 7 years, and I wanted to do, and what I loved at IKEA also was that I had multiple hats. So I was also a mentor for the business people. I was also a godmother for recruitment. I was also a global head for part of the textile business. I also was supporting the business agendas for multiple Asian markets. So I love that multifaceted. I also think I hit a ceiling. So I quit and I quit to start a consulting job or to start a consulting company of my own, because what I definitely wanted to do was to do multiple things. And I also knew that the two things I know well is how to do business in India with the Swedes and how to do business in Sweden with the Indians. So that was really all I really knew. So we started up one or two small branding companies, and they still exist and I still have an interest in them. But then I met Springtime, which is a PR agency, and I became an associate because I had also decided that I didn't want to work with anyone. And we grew the business until we came into a large business project, and we kind of joined heads and came out of that business project with confidence that we could be a business agency, because Springtime was a PR agency, and started a new business agency called 6 Year Plan, where our clients were at the intersection of business and public affairs. So the businesses where policies play a very major role, and the large businesses, those were our best clients. And I would say in 6 years, we did more business than we could have even managed. So it was a great success, that agency. And, I have pretty much everybody I worked with there are still my closest friends. And then a few years back, I also realized that 6 Year Plan is a large agency. When you come to India, it's most companies that are now entering the market and that need support are smaller. So I decided to set up my own company called Green Karmas. And that's where we are now. I'm running this agency where I help small, medium, large, whoever is interested in India, both from a advisory point of view, but also from supporting their market entry, but also helping them to kind of gain business and understand this market. And to find networks, both within the Indian subcontinent, but also within the Swedish. And that's one of the interesting things that's very similar between Sweden and India, is that we do business with relationships. And many times in India, the relationship leads to the business, but many times in Sweden, the business brings a relationship. So here I am with hands full today. I was just saying that to you before we started, that India's growth has been pretty interesting the last year. We are hitting an 8.4% growth, which is considering we just kind of got our head out of a very, very bad pandemic second wave. And I think everybody in my city lost someone. But we've come up with our heads above the water. Yeah. So, and I know the same is with Sweden. The business community has stayed stable and businesses have grown. And so I think it's a good match for me, two markets that are robust, and it's kept me rather busy lately. So I took longer than I should have, but that's a quick introduction.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Do you want to go, Fredrik? Or?
Yeah. Is it a year and a half we've known each other now? I think it's something like that. I think during almost the full pandemic period, it's really interesting. And one question that I have now when we have this opportunity is actually, what is the most common misunderstanding from a Swede entering a relationship to India?
So, we Indians, unlike other Asians, speak very good English, most of us, and most of the business community you meet. And I think the one big mistake every Swede makes is that they believe because we can communicate so easily with each other that we're rather similar, but we're not.
Okay. So you're similar from understanding the language, but not what we are saying.
No, we are very different as in our perspectives, I think.
Okay.
I'm generalizing more than I should, but I think it would be fair to say that if I just give you an example, if you go into a presentation from a Swedish company, it always starts with, you know, little circles of 1964 and 1978 and 1982 we did this, and it's always like a history before. And then we've come now, and this is where we are. But if you look at a presentation of an Indian company, they will always talk about we're here now, and 2022 will be here, and 2032 will be here, and 2052 will be here. So I think that the interesting part about Swedish companies is that you have a history and you've come a distance, and now you are standing on very stable ground. Indian companies are still in a growth scenario. We are entrepreneurs, so we seldom look back and more look ahead. And also we have
Atika, sorry for interrupting you here, but you actually just described for me listening first to my grandpa and then to my son. You know, grandpa saying this was the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then my son comes in, I will go to the moon in 2040. So this is very interesting. Is this a result of a country looking ahead because you are in this, you know, 9% growth ratio right now, and we have been something in the 60s and 70s and not really knowing where to go? Would you say that this is an effect of this, or is it just cultural?
No, I think that we're a young country from a business point of view, because, you know, we only became independent in 1947. So our businesses are still growing. So we are, of course, younger when it comes. We don't have the history you have. So we don't have that advantage yet. Demographic dividend, we are a young country.
Yeah.
Average age is 28 to 30.
Yeah, the last big change we had was that we made Norway independent in 1903.
So, you know, so we're a young population, and, you know, the youngsters, they really, like you said, your grandson or your son, he looks ahead, and that's how we look at it. That's the world view. So I think it's got a little bit to do with the fact that you have histories, and we're still building our history. Yeah. And also to do with the fact that when you go to Sweden, most people are graying, and when you come to India, most people are still growing. So it's there's a difference in you know, the average citizenry.
It's very interesting to be part of that type of growth and evolution of a country, and see everything is an opportunity, but it's also very scary.
Well, you're talking to a patriotic Indian, so I guess I'm a little colored in that as well. But yeah, I think it's really. I mean, I have had opportunities all my life to live in different markets, but I've always wanted to live here because of the opportunity. And I think that model continues. I think the opportunities here are immense, and I think that. You can take an Indian out of India, but you can't take India out of an Indian. So that's also a challenge.
You know, I collect on quotes, and that's one of the collected quotes I have saved, Atika. The first time I heard that from you, from your presentation at the round table we were at, and I really saved that. I love it. It's so very clear. And but another thing, I have friends that lived in India, and they always tell me India is not one India. India is many India. It's different regions. It's a huge country, a lot of people, different cultures inside also. Is that something you can comment on or give us some more insight in?
Yes, I always explain that it's a little bit like Europe, because, you know, every state we have is like a little European country, and maybe even in size, but definitely in culture, and in the difference in culture, and the difference in, so just like you're all European, we're all Indian, but we have different governance structures, legislations. We're a federal system, so you could equate it to Europe. And so your friends are right. It's, even an Indian doesn't know the whole of India. I mean, we can meet people. We have close friends that speak a language we don't understand, and we're still Indians, and we still have the same religious background as well. We come from the same social structures, but we could dress differently. We could be eating different food, and we could have different dialects. So and different scripts too. So
Interesting.
It's secular in many ways.
Atika, I want to go back a little bit to the textile industry that you have been working with a lot. What would you say is the major changes the last years when it comes to the textile industry?
So I am a little distanced, even though I run a sourcing company and we help brands to source in India, but we've always kept the sustainability agenda. So we have a niche which hasn't changed, which has actually grown. So from that aspect, I think the retail business is seeing the advantages of, reuse, recycling, kind of retail is seeing the advantages. So I think that's become pretty high on the agenda. And I think the pandemic has forced that upwards too, because everybody now thinks much more about health than they ever have. And so the environment, the social structures, everything become important. And that's always been the core of our business in sourcing. So for us, we're just seeing a larger advantage. But I think retail has, from the retail I've known for all these years, I think my best guess would be is that people are not shopping the way they used to. So of course, if you bought 4 blouses earlier, you buy 2 today, but your demand on those 2 blouses is much more than it was. So I think quality product is going to be, is really the name of the game. So product quality, the fact that it lives a longer life from a style perspective, from a quality perspective, then I think the customer may be willing to put in a little bit more because, they anyway are narrowing their purchase needs. So I think it's, and I also think, and I may be wrong because I haven't been traveling for the last year and a half more than going to the World Expo in Dubai, is that also people are dressing a little differently.
Yeah.
Everybody's a little bit more easier dressed than they used to be. Comfort is becoming part and parcel of fashion. So
no more suits.
Yeah, well, I commented on that in the first of pandemic when it became a really thing, and at least in Sweden, I believe in every other parts of the world, lounge wearing. We never had lounge wearing. It was pajamas or the jeans or a suit. And now it's lounge wear. I'm wearing lounge wearing now. And that is interesting, really interesting.
So the lines have faded in the middle of different style groups, but I think that I think that the demands on retail have increased. Especially in the fashion business. And I think that, just a simple example, we have a client who said the other day to me, she said, and she does loungewear and she always did loungewear. And she said, but I need to do a pair of black velvet pajamas that can also be worn to a cocktail party in the evening. Because, do you want to buy a separate pair of cocktail trousers? Can you not just wear the same ones? That would be so cool. I totally agree. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But that also means that the product is not the quality of nightwear anymore. It's the quality of the cocktail wear now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's, I think that shift, I think a successful retailer would have incorporated that shift into their business. But I'm still making a wild guess. Like I said, I haven't mapped the world the way I used to before. So
yeah, but
who has?
But I can see it from a consumer perspective where people are getting more aware of quality. I think everyone right now is twisting around the sweater and looking at the slip inside to see is it cotton or how many percentage cotton and so on. So yeah, I can totally see that increasing.
And the demand for sustainability, empowerment, responsibility, consciousness has really grown, and it's really more genuine today than it was before. Before, many times you felt that you were, on the brand side of that and not really on the product and the real responsibility side of it.
Yeah.
But today,
and we had from Sweden side, or now they are international company, we had a couple of scandals going on a couple of years ago when it comes to closing companies and factories outside of their origin countries, and the social responsibilities not being so good. So yeah, a lot have changed.
I think from that aspect, India has really taken the problem by the neck, if I may say so, because I think what they did a few years back was that 2% of everybody's profit goes into a corporate social responsibility, and they defined that very well. So you really were taking an X amount of money and putting it for a great cause. And I think that, when you do that yourself, what you feel is immense as well. So I think that's gone up. So,
but in India as a country was like 30 years ahead of China to really look into the development of the new technology and IT. And if you say we have two major competitors today on the internet or the development of IT or whatever we call it, it's the US and it's China. Actually, what not many people is thinking about is that two of the top management in the US for both Microsoft and Alphabet, Google, is actually Indian.
And now for Twitter.
Yeah, and now for Twitter since 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and that was wonderful. So 3 of the big tech executives right now is Indian, and this must be a result, of course, of this huge investment the government took decisions on 30 years ago to really go into tech and engineers. And I'm that old, so I was at CeBIT in Germany, the old fashion, exhibition of IT in the 90s, and I saw this Indian company popping up, selling their services from zero to everything in like 4 or 5 years. I think this was happening exactly the same time when IBM and Microsoft was competing about should we have Windows or OS2 in our computers, and we know the winner. And at the same time, there were always this Indian company showing up with new competences and expertise. And this has been great to see how a country can decide on that we want to be part of this, and then be able to go into the #1 Silicon Valley and have 3 executive positions from that, and huge amount of engineers, of course. This is, I don't know if a country like Sweden would be able to really focus on this. Do you have any insights in what happened there and how you do this? Because I'm very impressed.
So I think that there are two parts to this, and I mean, one of them is cultural, and the other one is the fact that we were so many of the global IT companies, before this IT, during the time that the IT boom happened, there were a lot of Indians in there, and we are naturally entrepreneurs because that's who we are. And that's one part of it, but the other part of it is also we have amongst the best engineering colleges in India. Pretty par excellence, and also that India has always been forward leaning when it came to education, because that's we're such a large population. So the unique point, the USP is the education. So an average Indian is far more educated than its counterpart in most parts of the world. So I think when you put that combination together, you get a pretty solid base to start with. And then I think also Indians are very hardworking, especially when they go abroad. they see that competitive edge that they have because of their educational qualifications, because of the fact that they don't work 8 hours. To work 8 hours, they work 12 hours. And also the fact that, they are good orators mostly, very both verbal in their communication. So I think those factors kind of add up, and the focus on IT has given us the top 3, I would be fair to say the top 3 world IT companies now.
Yeah.
The Twitter CEO are led by Indians, and there are major companies globally that are led by Indians, maybe not in the top 10.
And if we exclude Alphabet and Google, because they are not really on that level, both of those companies, Microsoft and Twitter, is 2 of those companies not stealing data, not trying to get into your personal life and selling it to someone like Satan or whatever, and so on. So they are representing something here also from a cultural perspective that differentiates them from the pure American management.
Mm-hmm.
And then I excluded Alphabet because he has 2 members in the board deciding this. So it's not his fault probably. But anyway, it's interesting actually that it's just those companies also. And also I read in the book about Jeff Bezos. He has been trying to enter India for the complete lifetime of Amazon, but he has never succeeded. and I like that.
No, but he has now.
I know he's acquired stuff now.
But Amazon has become pretty big. But what Amazon has kicked up is a lot of other players as well. So yeah. I think that they
are not dominant in the same way they are in Germany or Spain and in the US especially. They have not the domination in India, and they shouldn't have, of course. And also Spotify has had some huge problems there. So it's not a easy entering market, I guess, since it's not the lack of resources normally, that it's probably the relationship they have problems with.
So I think one of the most important things when you enter a market like India is the right partner.
Yeah.
Because like I said, many times you're fooled because you think that, you're meeting a person who's almost understands you when you understand them, because, it's so easy to communicate. And that may not really be the case. And that's when you could be in a place where you may have to relook at your market entry into India, which is also why it's great to have a good Indian partner. So, that's me modeling my own advertising.
Yeah, but you have been successful. So you're right. There you need to have a good partner, I guess, because I talked about 2 companies with huge resources that have struggled, and that's probably because they don't have this relationship. So you're probably right.
I think this has been a real pleasure having you, Atika. I think we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Already?
We want to keep it not too long so people can listen, but we could easily record a conversation of 8 hours.
We can have a follow-up of the Indian topic in a year or something like that, Atika. It would be great to have you as a guest again to follow up some stuff, especially our own development in the area together with you, to see what we can do and so on. So, yeah.
Look forward to that, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Namaste.
Thank you.